Queen closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, the silver fire had faded, replaced by something softer and warmer. "I became queen when I was very young," she said quietly. "I was taught that power was everything, that emotions were weakness, that duty mattered more than happiness. I ruled the way I was taught to rule." She looked at her daughters with new eyes. "But watching you now, seeing how strong you have become, perhaps I was taught wrong." Queen Zara raised her hand, and her entire army tensed, ready for orders. But instead of commanding an attack, she did something that shocked everyone. She knelt down on the ground in front of her daughters. "I am sorry," she said, tears flowing down her pale blue cheeks like liquid starlight. "I am sorry for trying to control your lives. I am sorry for not listening to your hearts. I am sorry for being the kind of mother who brought you fear instead of joy." Nova and Lyra dropped to their knees beside her, wrapping their arms around their mother in a hug that had been years in the making. "We forgive you, Mother," Nova whispered. "We love you," Lyra added. Queen Zara held her daughters tight, feeling their warmth and love for the first time in years. Can you teach me? Can you show me how to be better?" "Of course," Nova said, smiling through her tears. Jake watched this family reunion with a full heart. Around him, the human crowd was wiping away tears of their own. Even some of the alien soldiers were removing their helmets to dry their eyes. Queen Zara stood up and faced Jake. "Human, Jake Wilson, you have given me back my daughters, not just their bodies, but their hearts and spirits. How can I ever repay such a gift?" "You don't need to repay anything," Jake said. "Just let them be happy. Let them choose their own lives." The Queen nodded slowly. "More than that, I want to learn from you. I want to learn how to rule with kindness instead of fear. How to build an empire where people help each other instead of just obeying orders." She turned to address her soldiers and the human crowd. "Let this be known throughout the galaxy. The Catherian Empire will no longer be built on conquest and fear. We will become partners with other worlds, helpers instead of masters. And my daughters will lead this change if they choose to." Nova and Lyra looked at each other with excitement. "We can help planets that are suffering," Nova said. "Use our powers to heal the damage that wars have caused. We can teach other worlds about cooperation and friendship," Lyra added. "Show them what we learned here." Queen Zara smiled, and for the first time her smile was warm and genuine. "Then that is what we will do. But..." She looked at Jake hopefully. "Perhaps you would consider helping us? We could use a teacher in the ways of kindness and community." Jake laughed. "Your Majesty, I'm just a simple farmer." "The best teachers usually are simple people with good hearts," the Queen replied. And so began the most unlikely partnership in galactic history. Jake's small farm became a meeting place where humans and aliens learned to work together. Queen Zara visited regularly, slowly learning to rule with compassion instead of control. Nova and Lyra divided their time between traveling the galaxy to help suffering worlds and returning to the farm that had given them freedom. They became known throughout the stars not as conquering princesses, but as the healing sisters who brought hope wherever they went. The forced marriages were cancelled, much to the relief of Nova and Lyra and the anger of the cruel princes. But when those princes tried to cause trouble, they found themselves facing not just the Queen's armies, but entire worlds of people who had learned to stand together and protect each other. Jake never left his farm, but his influence spread across the galaxy. Worlds that had known only war and suffering began to practice the simple human values he had taught the royal family. Kindness, cooperation, and the radical idea that everyone deserved to choose their own path in life. Years later, when travelers asked Jake how one simple farmer had changed the course of galactic history, he would always give the same answer. "I didn't change anything. I just showed some scared young women that someone cared about them. Everything else, that was their choice. That was their strength. That was their love." And in a galaxy that had known mostly darkness, the light of compassion continued to grow, one act of kindness at a time. Sometimes the greatest revolutions start not with armies or weapons, but with one person choosing to help strangers who have nowhere else to turn. Jake Wilson, a farmer from a small planet, had proven that the most powerful force in the universe was not conquest or control. It was simply caring about others. The end. With 4 arms and weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Then came the royal guards, even bigger and more frightening, their armor decorated with skulls and bones from 100 different worlds. They formed 2 lines leading from the ship to Jake's small farmhouse. Finally, Queen Zara herself stepped into the morning light. Jake had never seen anything so terrifying and beautiful at the same time. The queen was tall as a tree, her pale blue skin glowing with inner power. Her black robes floated around her like living shadows, and crystal crowns spun in the air above her head. But it was her eyes that made Jake's blood freeze. They burned with silver fire like stars about to explode. Queen Zara walked slowly toward the farmhouse, her feet not quite touching the ground. With each step, frost spread across Jake's grass, and small animals ran away in terror. The very air seemed to bend around her terrible power. Jake walked out of his house to meet her. His rifle felt like a toy in his hands, but he held it steady. Behind him he could hear Nova and Lyra following, despite his orders to stay inside. "Stop right there!" Jake called out when the queen was 50 feet away. Queen Zara raised one elegant hand and her entire army stopped moving. She looked at Jake with curiosity, like a scientist studying an interesting bug. "You are the human who has been hiding my daughters," she said. Her voice was like music mixed with thunder, beautiful and terrifying. "I'm Jake Wilson," he said, trying to keep his voice strong. "This is my farm, my planet, and these women are my guests." The queen's crystal crowns spun faster. "Your guests?" She laughed, and the sound made Jake's windows crack. "You steal the daughters of Queen Zara and you call them guests?" "I didn't steal anyone," Jake said firmly. "They came here hurt and scared, and I helped them. That's what decent people do." "Decent?" The queen's eyes flared brighter. "You know nothing about decency, little human. You have interfered in royal business. You have hidden my daughters from me for a week. You will die slowly for this crime." Queen Zara raised her hand, and lightning began to dance between her fingers. But before she could strike, Nova and Lyra stepped out from behind Jake. "Mother, stop!" Nova called out, her own golden energy glowing around her body. "Do not hurt him," Lyra added, silver light flowing from her hands. The queen stared at her daughters in shock. They looked different than when she had last seen them, stronger, more confident. Their crystal markings were brighter, and they stood tall without fear. "My daughters," the queen said, her voice suddenly soft. "Come to me. Come home where you belong." "This is where we belong," Nova said firmly, moving closer to Jake's side. "With him?" The queen's voice turned cold again. "With this farmer?" "With someone who treats us like people," Lyra said. "Not like tools for your empire." Queen Zara's face twisted with anger. "I am your mother. I gave you life, power, everything you have. You gave us a cage," Nova replied sadly. "You wanted to sell us to monsters for political power. Those marriages would have strengthened our empire." "At the cost of our happiness," Lyra said. "At the cost of our freedom." Jake watched this family argument with a heavy heart. He could see the pain in all 3 women's faces. The daughters who wanted love, and the mother who thought control was the same thing as caring. "You have poisoned their minds," Queen Zara said, pointing at Jake with a finger that crackled with energy. "You have turned my daughters against me with your human lies about freedom and choice." "I didn't poison anything," Jake said. "I just treated them with respect. I listened to them. I cared about their feelings." "Feelings?" The queen spat. "Feelings are weakness. I rule 1,000 worlds because I am strong, because I make hard choices." "You rule through fear," Jake said, surprising himself with his boldness. "But these 2 women, they're the strongest people I've ever met. They ran away from the most powerful empire in the galaxy to protect their freedom. That takes more courage than conquering planets." Nova and Lyra looked at Jake with amazement. No one had ever described them as strong before. Queen Zara stared at this simple human farmer who dared to lecture her about strength. "You think your words can save you? You think your human friendship means anything against royal blood and duty? I think," Jake said slowly, "that love means more than power." The queen's crystal crowns turned bright red. "Enough! Guards, seize him!" 20 armored soldiers started moving toward Jake, their weapons charged and ready. But before they could take 3 steps, Nova and Lyra raised their hands together. A wall of golden and silver light exploded between Jake and the soldiers. The energy was so bright and powerful that the guards were thrown backward, their armor smoking. "We will not let you hurt him," Nova declared, her purple eyes blazing with determination. "He is under our protection," Lyra added, her blue eyes shining like stars. Queen Zara stared at her daughters in shock. She had never seen them use their powers so strongly, so confidently. They had always been afraid to show their full strength before. Just then, the sound of vehicles approaching filled the air. Jake turned to see trucks and hoverbikes racing toward his farm from all directions. His human neighbors, farmers, miners, shop owners, were coming to help. Word had spread about the alien ships, and the whole community was rallying to support one of their own. Soon, Jake's farm was surrounded by hundreds of humans, all of them standing together against the alien army. They had hunting rifles, farm tools, mining equipment, nothing that could seriously threaten the Queen's forces, but they stood bravely anyway. "You see," Jake said to Queen Zara, "this is what real strength looks like. People choosing to help each other, even when it's dangerous." The Queen looked around at the crowd of humans, then back at her daughters, who were glowing with power and confidence she had never seen before. For the first time in her long life, Queen Zara began to doubt herself. Her daughters had never been happier or stronger. This human had somehow given them something she never could, despite all her power and wealth. But admitting she was wrong would mean changing everything about how she ruled her empire. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance as Queen Zara prepared to make the most important decision of her life. Queen Zara stood in silence for a long moment, surrounded by her armies, facing her daughters and hundreds of brave humans. The crystal crowns above her head slowly stopped spinning, and their angry red light faded to a soft blue. She looked at Nova and Lyra, really looked at them, perhaps for the first time in years. Her daughters stood tall and confident, their crystal markings glowing with healthy golden light. They were not the scared, quiet girls she remembered from the palace. They had become strong women. "In all my centuries of life," Queen Zara said slowly, "I have conquered worlds, defeated armies, and built the greatest empire in galactic history, but I have never seen my daughters smile the way they are smiling now." Nova and Lyra were indeed smiling, standing protectively beside Jake, their faces bright with happiness and determination. "How?" the Queen asked, her voice barely a whisper. "How did one simple human farmer give you something I could not?" Jake stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, I didn't give them anything. They already had everything they needed inside them. I just listened to them, treated them like people whose feelings mattered." "But they are princesses," the Queen said, confusion in her voice. "They have duties, responsibilities to the Empire." "With respect, Your Majesty," Jake said gently. "What good is an empire if the people in it aren't happy? What's the point of power if it only brings suffering?" Lyra moved closer to her mother. "Mother, we love you. We have always loved you. But we cannot live the life you planned for us. We cannot marry men who will hurt us just to make the empire bigger. We want to help people," Nova added, her golden energy dancing around her fingers. "Use our powers to heal, to build, to bring peace, not to conquer and destroy." Queen Zara looked at her daughters, then at Jake, then at the crowd of humans who had risked their lives to support their friend. She saw something in their faces that she had not seen in her empire for a long time. Genuine care for each other. "You would really risk your lives for this farmer?" she asked the human crowd. An old woman stepped forward. She was Jake's neighbor Mary, who ran the local store. "Your Majesty, Jake helped us all at some time or another. When my husband died, Jake worked our farm for free so we wouldn't starve. When the Murphy family lost their home in a fire, Jake took them in for 6 months. That's the kind of man he is," a young miner nodded. "Jake's the first person to help when anyone's in trouble. He doesn't ask for payment. He doesn't expect anything back. He just helps because it's right." More voices joined in, telling stories of Jake's kindness, his generosity, his willingness to help anyone in need. Queen Zara listened to each story with growing wonder. "This is how humans treat each other?" she asked. "The good ones do," Jake said simply. "We take care of our neighbors. We help our friends. We stand together when things get difficult." Queen Zara turned back to her daughters. "And this is what you want?" This simple life of helping others? Yes, Mother, Nova said firmly. We want to choose our own path. We want to find our own way to make the universe better. We want to be free, Lyra added. We run. Jake felt anger growing in his chest. What kind of mother would force her daughters to marry cruel men? Nova continued. We take small ship. Try to go far away. But ship broken. We crash on your planet. Walk long time. Very tired. Find your barn. Sleep. The men who hurt you? Jake asked. Pirates find us first, Lyra said, her English better than Nova's. They want to sell us back to Mother for money. We fight, we escape, but they hurt us first. Jake looked at these two brave women who had fought so hard for their freedom. His heart felt heavy with sadness for them. Your mother, she's powerful? Jake asked. Nova and Lyra laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Most powerful woman in galaxy, Nova said. She rule 1,000 worlds. Million soldiers. When she angry, planets die. A cold feeling went down Jake's back. He was hiding the daughters of the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. If she found them here. She kill you if she find us with you, Lyra said sadly. We should go. We not want you get hurt because of us. But Jake shook his head. No, you're hurt and scared. You need help. I won't let anyone take you if you don't want to go. Both women stared at him with surprise. They had never met someone who would risk danger to help strangers. Why you help us? Nova asked softly. Jake thought about it. Because it's the right thing to do. Because everyone deserves to choose their own life. As Jake spoke these words, something amazing happened. Both women's crystal markings began to glow with warm golden light. They had never heard anyone talk about choice and freedom before. In space above them, Queen Zara's war fleet was getting closer. The ships were now only 3 star jumps away from Kepler 442b. Soon, they would begin searching Jake's planet. But Jake did not know this yet. He only knew that 2 frightened women needed his protection, and he would give it to them, no matter what the cost. The Queen's rage was coming to his quiet world, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 days had passed since Jake found Lyra and Nova in his barn. The alien ships had come back twice, flying low over his farm like hunting birds. Each time, Jake hid the 2 women in his underground shelter until the danger passed. During these quiet days, something beautiful was happening. Nova's English was getting better, and she was teaching Lyra too. They spent hours talking with Jake, sharing stories and learning about each other's worlds. Jake had never been happier. His lonely farm felt alive with laughter and conversation. But he could see sadness in the women's eyes, especially when they looked at the sky. On the 3rd evening, Jake was making dinner in his small kitchen when Nova walked in. Her golden skin looked pale and her purple eyes were full of worry. Jake, she said softly, we need to tell you truth. All truth. Jake put down his cooking spoon and looked at her. What truth? Nova called to Lyra, who came from the living room where she had been reading one of Jake's books. Both women sat down at Jake's wooden table, their crystal markings glowing with nervous blue light. You know our mother looked for us, Nova began. But we not tell you. Who she is? Jake sat down across from them. Tell me. Lyra took a deep breath. Our mother is Queen Zara. She rules the Catherian Empire. 1,000 worlds, 5 million warships, billion soldiers. Jake felt his stomach drop. He had guessed their mother was powerful, but this was beyond anything he could imagine. She is not just powerful, Nova continued. She is, how you say, control everything. Every person in Empire must obey her, including us. What did she want you to do? Jake asked, though he already knew part of the answer. Marry, Lyra said, her voice full of pain. 2 alien princes, Prince Corax of the Death Worlds and Prince Venom of the Slave Markets. Nova shuddered. Prince Corax kills his wives when he gets bored with them. He has killed 12 wives. Prince Venom treats women like animals, makes them crawl on ground like dogs. Jake felt anger burning in his chest. And your mother wanted you to marry these monsters. For power, Nova said sadly. Marriage would give Mother control over their planets and armies. She say our happiness not important. Only Empire matters. Lyra wiped tears from her blue eyes. We beg her, we cry. We say, please, Mother, do not make us do this. But she say we are princesses. We have duties. Our feelings do not matter. Jake reached across the table and held both their hands. Their skin was warm and soft, and their crystal markings turned golden at his touch. So you ran away, Jake said. We planned for months, Nova explained. We steal small ship during royal celebration. Everyone was drinking and dancing. No one noticed we gone until next day. We fly far, far away, Lyra added. Want to find place where mother cannot reach us. But ship was old. Engine break. We crash on your planet. Nova's voice got quieter. Then pirates find us. They know who we are. Want to capture us and sell us back to mother for reward money. We fight them, Lyra said, touching the healing cuts on her arms. Use our powers. Jake remembered their crystal markings and how they glowed with different colors. You have special powers? The two women looked at each other nervously. Nova nodded slowly. We not show you before. Afraid you get scared of us. Show me, Jake said gently. Nova held up her hand. Golden light began to flow from her fingers like liquid sunshine. The light danced in the air, forming shapes of flowers and butterflies. It was the most beautiful thing Jake had ever seen. Then Lyra raised her hand. Silver light poured from her palm, cool and peaceful like moonlight on water. The silver light mixed with Nova's golden light, creating patterns that looked like magic. Nova controls energy, Lyra explained. Heat, electricity, life force. I control light and shadow. Together we are very strong. That's incredible, Jake said with wonder. You're not just princesses. You're like goddesses. Both women blushed, their markings turning pink. Mother always tell us our powers are tools for empire, Nova said. Use them to make people afraid. Use them to fight wars. But we not want to hurt people. We want to help people. Like you help us, Lyra added, smiling at Jake. Jake felt his heart swell with emotion. These amazing women with power beyond imagination were sitting in his simple kitchen, grateful for his friendship. Your mother, Jake said carefully. What will she do when she finds you? The light in both women's hands disappeared. Their faces went dark with fear. She will take us home, Nova whispered. Chain us up. Make sure we cannot escape again. Then force us to marry princes anyway. What about me? Jake asked. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She will think you kidnapped us. She will kill you slowly. Make you suffer for taking her daughters. Then she will destroy your planet, Nova added. Kill everyone here. Make examples so no one else tries to help runaway princesses. Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. But when he looked at Lyra and Nova's scared faces, his fear turned into determination. Then we won't let her find you, he said firmly. Both women stared at him in shock. Jake, you not understand, Nova said urgently. She has million soldiers, giant ships, weapons that can break planets in half. You're just one human man. Maybe, Jake said. But this is my home, and you are my friends. I won't let anyone hurt my friends. Lyra reached across the table and touched Jake's face gently. Her hand was cool and soft. You are most brave man we ever meet. But this too dangerous. We should leave. Find somewhere else to hide. Where? Jake asked. She's searching the whole galaxy. At least here you have me to help you. Nova was crying now, her tears glowing like tiny golden stars. We not want you die because of us. And I don't want you to be slaves because of fear, Jake replied. As they talked, none of them noticed the small lights moving across the night sky outside. Queen Zara's scout ships had entered the solar system. They were searching every planet, every moon, every asteroid. Soon they would reach Kepler 442b. The Queen's war fleet was only hours away, and Jake's quiet life was about to become the center of the biggest crisis in galactic history. But in his kitchen, surrounded by the warm golden and silver light of two alien princesses, Jake felt something he had never felt before. He felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Tomorrow would bring danger beyond imagination. But tonight, he had two friends who needed his help. And that was enough. Jake woke up to the sound of thunder, but when he looked outside, the sky was clear. The thunder was not coming from clouds. It was coming from 3 massive alien warships landing in his wheat fields. Each ship was the size of a city block, black as midnight and covered with sharp spikes like metal thorns. As they settled on the ground, they crushed his crops and made the earth shake. Steam rose from their burning engines, and red lights blinked along their sides like angry eyes. They found us, Nova whispered from beside him at the window. Her golden skin had turned pale with fear. Lyra stood behind them, her silver markings flickering between blue and red. Mother is here. Jake felt his heart hammering in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. Stay behind me. No matter what happens, stay behind me. Jake, no, Lyra said urgently. You cannot face her. She will kill you without thinking. Maybe, Jake said, checking that his old hunting rifle was loaded. But I'm not letting her take you without a fight. The front of the largest ship opened like a metal mouth. A bright white light poured out, and figures began walking down a ramp that stretched to the ground. First came dozens of armored soldiers, each one 8 feet tall. Jake Wilson walked toward his old red barn as the morning sun painted the sky orange and pink. He lived alone on his small farm on Kepler 442b, a quiet planet far from Earth. Most days were the same: feed the animals, fix broken things, and watch the empty sky. But today would be different. Today would change everything. As Jake pulled open the heavy barn door, he stopped. His mouth fell open. 2 young women lay sleeping in the hay near his old tractor. But these were not human women. Their skin glowed softly in the morning light. One had silver skin that sparkled like stars. The other had golden skin that shone like warm honey. Jake stepped closer, his boots making soft sounds on the wooden floor. Both women looked hurt. Dark purple bruises covered their arms and legs. Their strange clothes were torn and dirty. Crystal-like markings decorated their faces, changing colors from blue to green as they breathed. What the hell? Jake whispered to himself. He had never seen anything like this in his 30 years of life. The golden-skinned woman opened her eyes first. They were bright purple like beautiful flowers. When she saw Jake, she sat up quickly and made a scared sound. She pushed herself back against the barn wall and woke up her friend. The silver-skinned woman jumped up fast. Her eyes were deep blue like ocean water. Both women looked at Jake with fear and said words he could not understand. Their language sounded like music mixed with wind chimes. Jake held up his hands to show he was friendly. Hey, it's okay, he said in a soft voice. I won't hurt you. The women looked confused. They talked to each other in their strange language, pointing at Jake and looking around the barn. The golden one had tears in her purple eyes. The silver one stood in front of her friend like a guard. Jake could see they were scared and hurt. His mother had always taught him to help people in need. It did not matter that these were not people from his world. You're hurt, Jake said slowly, pointing to their bruises. I can help you. The silver-skinned woman shook her head and pointed to the sky. She made sounds that seemed angry or worried. The golden one grabbed her friend's arm and made quiet crying sounds. Suddenly, a low humming noise filled the air. Jake looked up through the barn window and saw 3 dark shapes moving across the sky. They looked like ships, but not like any ships humans made. They were black and moved like hunting birds. Both women saw the ships too. Their faces went white with terror. The golden one grabbed Jake's shirt and pointed at the ships. She said something that sounded like begging. Those ships are looking for you, Jake asked. The women did not understand his words, but they understood his meaning. Both nodded their heads quickly. The silver one pointed at the ships, then at herself and her friend, then made a cutting motion across her throat. Jake understood. Those ships meant death for these 2 women. The ships flew closer to his farm. Jake could hear their engines getting louder. He had to make a choice, help these strange women or stay safe. But looking at their scared faces, he already knew his answer. Follow me, Jake said, waving his hand toward the back of the barn. He led them to a hidden door in the barn floor. His father had built this underground shelter years ago during the colony wars. Jake pulled open the heavy wooden door and showed them the stairs going down into darkness. The women looked confused, but when the ship sounds got louder, they understood. Jake went down first and turned on the old electric lights. The underground room had food, water, and beds. It was safe. Both women climbed down quickly. Jake closed the door above them just as the alien ships flew directly over his barn. The humming sound was so loud it made the walls shake. In the underground shelter, the 3 of them sat in silence. The women looked around the small room with wonder. The silver-skinned one touched the electric light switch and made a surprised sound when it turned on and off. Jake opened a bottle of water and gave it to them. The golden woman drank first, then shared it with her friend. Jake opened a can of food and offered it to them with a spoon. They ate like they had not had food in many days. As they ate, Jake studied them more carefully. They were beautiful but also strong. Their crystal markings seemed to glow brighter when they felt emotions. Both looked young, maybe 20 years old in human time. The silver-skinned woman pointed to herself and said slowly, Lyra. The golden woman pointed to herself and said, Nova. Then both pointed at Jake with questioning looks. Jake, he said, pointing to himself. My name is Jake. They repeated his name several times, trying to say it correctly. When they smiled, their crystal markings turned bright gold. Above them, the alien ships continued to search. Their hunting sounds filled the air like angry thunder. Jake looked at Lyra and Nova, these two mysterious women who had fallen into his simple life. He did not know that he was hiding the most wanted beings in the galaxy. He did not know that their mother was a powerful queen who was destroying planets to find them. He only knew that two frightened women needed his help. And Jake Wilson, a simple farmer from a quiet planet, had just made the most important decision of his life. Far away in the deep darkness of space, a massive ship floated like a metal mountain among the stars. The ship was so big that small planets looked like toys next to it. This was the royal mothership of the Catherian Empire, and inside it lived the most powerful woman in the galaxy. Queen Zara stood in her great throne room, her tall figure covered in flowing black robes that sparkled with tiny lights like stars. Her skin was pale blue and her eyes glowed with silver fire. Crystal crowns floated around her head, spinning slowly in the air. When she was angry, the crystals turned red like blood. Right now they were very red. Find them. Queen Zara's voice shook the walls of the throne room. Find my daughters now. Around her, dozens of alien soldiers dropped to their knees. Their armor made clicking sounds as they bowed. Each soldier was 8 feet tall with forearms and faces like metal masks. These were the Queen's most loyal guards, but even they were afraid of her anger. My Queen, said General Vex, the leader of her armies. His voice sounded like grinding metal. We have searched 200 planets. We have asked every merchant, every trader, every smuggler in 12 star systems. No one has seen Princess Lyra or Princess Nova. Queen Zara's crystal crowns spun faster. They did not just disappear like smoke. Someone took them from me. Someone will pay with their blood. She waved her hand, and a huge screen appeared in the air above them. It showed pictures of her two daughters, Lyra with her silver skin and kind smile, Nova with her golden skin and bright laugh. Both looked happy in these old pictures, but Queen Zara could not remember the last time she had seen them smile. It has been 3 weeks, the Queen said, her voice getting quieter but more dangerous. 3 weeks since my daughters were supposed to return from their trip to the Crystal Moons. 3 weeks of silence. She turned to face her soldiers. I offered rewards bigger than most planets are worth. I promised to make anyone rich beyond dreams if they bring me information. I threatened to destroy entire star systems if they hide my daughters from me. And still, nothing. General Vex shifted uncomfortably. My Queen, perhaps they left on their own. The princesses were not happy about the marriage arrangements. Silence. Queen Zara's scream made the metal walls crack. Lightning shot from her fingers and hit the floor near General Vex's feet. My daughters are good girls. They would never run away from their duties. Someone stole them from me. But deep in her heart, the Queen knew the truth. She knew that Lyra and Nova had been unhappy for months. She knew they cried when they thought she was not watching. She knew they begged her not to make them marry the cruel alien princes she had chosen for them. Queen Zara pushed these thoughts away. She was the ruler of 1,000 worlds. She could not be wrong. Double the search, she ordered. Send ships to every planet in the outer systems. Check every small world, every farming planet, every mining station. Someone, somewhere has seen my daughters. On her command, hundreds of black warships left the mothership like angry wasps leaving their nest. They spread out across the galaxy, searching every corner of space. Meanwhile, far away on the small farming planet Kepler 442b, Jake sat in his underground shelter with Lyra and Nova. The alien ships had flown away hours ago, but he was still keeping the two women hidden. Jake had brought them food, water, and clean clothes from his house. He had also brought medical supplies to help heal their wounds. As he cleaned the cuts on Nova's arms, she winced but did not pull away. Who hurt you? Jake asked softly, even though he knew they could not understand him. Lyra and Nova looked at each other with sad eyes. Nova pointed to herself and said slowly in broken English, Bad men want hurt us. Jake was surprised. You can speak English? Nova nodded. Little bit. Learned from Earth movies. Lyra know little too. This was good news for Jake. Now they could talk even if it was difficult. Why were those ships looking for you? Jake asked, Nova's purple eyes filled with tears. She looked at Lyra, who nodded slowly. Our mother, Nova said quietly. She looked for us. She very angry. She think someone take us, but you ran away? Jake guessed. Both women nodded sadly. Lyra tried to speak in English too. Mother want us. Marry bad princes. Princes hurt women. Make them slaves. We say no. Mother say we must. So we